So getting into volume 16 of Jobless Reincarnation, this is a volume that to me is a bit of a mix between sort of the calm before a bigger storm to come, because there is some interesting stuff in this volume that's kind of like, kind of crazy stuff going on with a demon lord that's a slime. Kind of reminded me of Rimuru from Reincarnated Slime. I don't know if it's just a subtle, well, I don't think it is. I haven't looked up the release dates for these volumes when they came out in Japan, and then the kind of tie into Reincarnated Slime, but maybe it's a subtle reference to Reincarnated Slime, I don't know. But it just did remind me of that. Maybe someone in the comment section can work it out for me, because I can't be bothered. But it's still really funny, like seeing the demon lord himself as a slime that's in a library that reads books and kind of has this massive library. It kind of reminded me of him just because of the manga books that Rimuru used to like produce with paper and everything. He used to pump them out. It just kind of reminded me of that, and the fact that, yeah, it's like a demon lord kind of thing. I don't know, it was just a fun little tie-in that I thought about and was like, I wonder if that's deliberate or not. But there's so many little cool things that happen in this volume, but I still feel like it's another calm before the storm, like before the next big thing that's going to happen. And there's a lot of things that are like kind of building up to, especially with the man god. And the man god, I really am starting to feel like there's a lot of stuff that's going to go down with the man god. And the reason being for that is because some of the stuff that he can and cannot do is kind of unraveling. Orsted and Rudy are having a lot of discussions about the man god, what their plans are, why they're doing things in a certain way, how they're going to execute those plans, and them trying to do it and then maybe pivoting a little bit, trying to work through things. But really what stood out to me is just the level of power and influence the man god might have. And Rudy kind of being a bit paranoid, being like, okay, who could be working with the man god? But one of the things that I don't think even Rudy understands, or maybe those close to him, is that, to me at least, the man god could have influence on people even against their will. Because, again, Rudy did what he did not because he wanted to, but because he had to protect his family and those that he loved and cared about. But the reality is that the man god can do the exact same. He can manipulate people and be like, hey, don't tell anyone this or bad things might happen. Like, he can do the same level of manipulation. And it does seem to be that he has kind of like an opposite type curse than what Orsted does. Like, everyone distrusts Orsted while everyone really trusts the man god, which is funny because you shouldn't be trusting the man god, but you should be trusting probably Orsted, because Orsted seems to be generally the better person, while man god is as evil as it comes, or manipulative is the best way to go about it. He has his own agenda and is trying to sort of do things in a certain way, especially with the fact that Rudy's offspring are going to be the ones that will defeat the man god, and that's why the man god is trying to remove all of those that are close to him, like particularly the girls themselves, and trying to get rid of all the children, which is why clearly the man god went for Roxy when she was pregnant, because, well, if she can't have the child, well, then that's one of the problems out of the way. But still, in that alternate sort of future, there was still one kid that was still alive, though, to be honest, it probably wouldn't have been that hard for the man god to probably try and go after that one particular child, compared to an entire family, and especially with Eris, now part of the family. Eris is very protective, and she protects everyone close to her, including Rudy's other components to the family. So I really do feel like Eris contributes quite a lot to the family, even though, yeah, she can be a little bit rough around the edges, but that's what I really love about Eris. She's a little bit rough, but quite enjoyable to those personality traits, and the fact that she's teaching certain individual, a sister, about sword practice and all that kind of stuff. There was also a lot of stuff to do with Elise and another party member, and then some backstory, or kind of them reminiscing and talking about stuff and them having their reunion. I didn't even really think about that, but when it came up, I was like, that actually is a good thing to actually happen in the story, because I was kind of like, I wonder how those two would react to seeing each other again. But I think it's just because there's so many cool things going on and so many other questions that I have, the minor ones that aren't as important to me are kind of like just off to the side, because I'm like, okay, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? Especially with Rudy catching up with the boys and trying to work on the armor again, and them thinking that Rudy's trying to defeat Orsted, because this is the thing. He can't really openly admit, hey, I'm working with Orsted, because none of them seem to trust Orsted. And that's one of the reasons why I do believe that the children... Now, again, this is just a theory. I have a very strong feeling that this is the correct sort of theory. But the reason why Rudy's children work with Orsted is because they will have the same immunity to his curse because of Rudy. So they won't be scared or petrified of Orsted. So it would kind of like, it would be passed down as like a birth thing. And so his children won't be impacted by the curse of being repulsed by Orsted. So they will work with Orsted and trust him and fight against the man god. What I find more interesting about that is the fact that that sets up a massive storyline that will happen later on, because this is the thing, Rudy hasn't clearly had all the children yet. Like, there's clearly this future that's still yet to happen. So unless one of the children is the main one, and it's like, okay, there's 2 children so far, but Eris clearly wants a child, so minimally there are meant to be 3 children. I kind of have an idea of how many children are, but again, I don't want spoilers on that. I'm just merely speculating that there are more children to come, and that clearly some of those children are going to work with Orsted in the future. So there's so much to kind of go down that rabbit hole, but I really want to read more of the light novels before I really come up with a theory, because there's no point me coming up with a theory about really far down in the future when I've still got so much yet to read. But there is just so much cool stuff that happens as a volume that just makes me kind of think about the future. And then of course you've got the princess herself going into the library trying to work out what she needs to say to a certain individual, and her struggling with that. And even though it wasn't the ideal thing, it was the way she does it, the conviction, the determination. And at the end of the day, she's just like, I just don't really care if you want to support me or not. I'm gonna do this because this is the right thing to do. Those that have died to help me get to that place, and those that see the potential in her, I really did like that kind of development, because it's not the perfect outcome. It's not like she gave the perfect answer, but it was an answer that was built in her own beliefs and conviction. And then she also learned a lot about others around her as well, even though certain individual crying on a book ended up upsetting possibly a slime. But I feel like Rudy can sort that out, because all Rudy has to do is write in the diary and be like, dear slime overlord, demon lord thing, sorry about the book, blah 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 blah, because that demon lord is able to basically take in all the books in the world. So it's an interesting like depository of like knowledge, a good place to go to for that kind of stuff. But the thing is, you got to kind of navigate through a lot of books, so it's an interesting kind of place. But it has its strengths and weaknesses, but you don't want to damage anything in there. You kind of want to be very careful. And it does seem to be that maybe that demon lord might hold a grudge. So, yeah, I wouldn't want to be Rudy at that point. But as I've said, this just feels like a calm before storm again. Like, there's so much crazy stuff that happens in this volume, but it still feels like it's building up to something really big that's about to happen. I mean, it's kind of obvious because they're building up the whole, her ascension, the princess, and how she's going to be kind of vying for control, and Rudy's going to help with that to make sure things don't go sour. And of course, that's Orsted's wish, to make sure that she's put in that position. Then there's also the whole stuff with the man god and having to deal with him and what he's possibly got out there, like little pawns. And it seems to be he's limited on how many people he can try and manipulate. There's so many questions that I have, and I'm extremely excited to see where all that goes. So I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Again, what did you think of this volume? Are you excited for season 2? Though this stuff won't be in season 2, this would be like season 3 material if they're following the same pattern as season 1, with the number of episodes and the number, roughly give or take, and the number of volumes being covered. I would expect this to be in season 3 material. So again, love to know your thoughts. Super excited to read the next volume. Volume 17. Got a bit of a slog still to go, but I'm really enjoying going through it. And the thing is I don't want to finish the series. The reason being is because I feel like I'm going to be really sad once it's done, and then I'll kind of feel empty and hollow, because I've become very attached to the growth and the development of Rudy, the girls. Orsted's becoming one of my favorite, well, he is my favorite character now. I don't know. There's something about him. He's just kind of adorable, but it's kind of weird at the same time. I just have to dissect it all, but I'm really looking forward to the future volumes. Again, if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more anime content, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.